Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Illegally Yours.
Hello, and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my Peruvian co-host, the sultry tones of this podcast, Julio Oliveira. Julio, the summer project rages on. For this case, the Bogdanovich films rages on wholeheartedly. And it may be the end of May here in Texas, and the temperature is already quite alarming considering we have 3 more months where it's supposed to get hotter and hotter to go. But we're taking a stop off for a Christmas film here.
A Christmas film?
This is a Christmas movie. Did you not pay attention to this at all?
I mean, I might have been a little too enchanted by young Rob Lowe, but is there an actual Christmas plot point?
Calls out that it's Christmas. There are wreaths and decorations everywhere. There are Christmas carols that play throughout this movie.
What? I remember Johnny Cash.
Did we watch the same movie?
Does it star Rob Lowe?
When he wakes up in the town square, behind him is a nativity scene that says, "God bless us, everyone."
Oh, I remember that part. Okay, well, he was...
Julio's in Peru, those are just up year round. That doesn't mean anything special. No, that was the joke. They're in St. Augustine, Florida, and it's Christmas time, but it's still, there's no snow or anything. But yeah, there's Christmas decorations everywhere.
There's not a single gifts exchange in this movie.
Well, I don't know about that.
Does anybody ever say Merry Christmas? Happy Holidays, even?
They took it away from us. Back in 1988, we had to say Happy Holidays.
Not even that.
There's a Christmas tree when the guy gets shot at the spoiler alert, but or no, he doesn't get shot. You think he gets shot the way it's framed. Well, anyway,
in my defense, there's a lot going on in this movie.
The hilarity of it is that this absolutely qualifies as a Christmas film. There's constant Christmas scenery throughout this, but the movie came out in May of 1988, so it came out around the same time we're talking about it. The reindeer games, that they didn't have enough faith in it, so they just shipped it to February with it. And believe me, reindeer games is in the discussion. I think it's a heated debate what the better film is. Reindeer Games or Illegally Yours, and I think maybe we can get to that
double feature
the second half. But yes, I guess what we've learned here, folks, is that Julio's going to have to watch this again to soak in all the Christmas vibes. But yes,
Buddy,
it is.
I've watched it twice already. I think I need a break from Illegally Yours.
Peter Bogdanovich, directed, written by Max Dickens and M.A. Stewart. Rob Lowe at the center of this, in the lead. And this was 1988, so this would have been after The Outsiders, St. Elmo's Fire, Youngblood, About Last Night. So he was, already one of the hot names, the hot young up-and-comers in Hollywood.
Was he on the way up in the same way that Bogdanovich was on the way down?
I can't remember when that shit happened with Rob Lowe with the sex tape. I think it was the late 80s, because I remember Wayne's World was kind of his comeback. If my timeline is correct, I feel like Wayne's World was kind of he's back in black type thing. But I know there was that sex tape, and it's coming back to me now, the details of it, which we don't need to go into. But
well, there's no P-Bog sex tape, so in that sense, If Rob Lowe's career was a little derailed.
What Peter Bogdanovich did to derail his momentum was pretty rock and roll. Very like what movie making is supposed to be. Just be a fucking asshole and, make people mad to the point where they don't want to work with you anymore.
So just put it in context, right? Targets, we did on Patreon. Last Picture Show, we did on the main feed, was our first Bogdanov film. We did Paper Moon with Patreon a long time ago. We did What's Up Doc, also on the Patreon. Then we did Nickelodeon on the main feed. We will be covering Daisy Miller, which is a movie that he did right before Nickelodeon. And we have one more, I Think They All Laughed. All that's also going to be on the Patreons. All that stuff happened before this movie, before Illegally Yours. And we thought that we'd hit a pretty bad low with the 7% of Nickelodeon. But this movie is 0% the tomato meter. And kind of like with what happened with Nickelodeon, in big part, it's because there's only 5 reviews for it.
Still kind of shocking. You would think there would be someone at this point in time who would have logged on to say, hey, underrated classic.
How do you get to that point where, you made all those movies and then a decade later, you can't even get more than 5 critics to review your new movie?
Yes. In 1988, he was very concerned about what the internet was going to be saying.
I get he had other concerns, but I'm sure his publicist or his agent, somebody must have been like, man, we got to do something about this.
He's aware of what this movie's legacy is. We'll talk about that in the second half. But I'm assuming because of the 0% rating and Real Talk, you're going to have to delve into the recesses of Letterboxd to get us some positive quotes. So which of the negative quotes from Rotten Tomatoes did you pull here today?
All right. Out of those 5, Alex, by the way, one is a dead link. So
there you go.
Very, very slim pickings. I'm going to start with a labeled top critic Variety staff from Variety, who says, an embarrassingly unfunny attempt at screwball comedy, marking a career nadir for producer-director Peter Bogdanovich and his miscast star Rob Lowe. We've encountered that word, nadir. I know I Googled it once and it said nadir. And then you said Ralph Nader. Yeah, so we can't win.
We had the discussion. I think it can be pronounced Nader or Nadir. I think either way that it works.
Either way, it doesn't spell good things for Peter Bogdanovich. They didn't like it at Variety. And they say Rob Lowe is miscast, what is it that they're having trouble with here? They don't buy Rob Lowe as a dorky protagonist? How do they feel about Chris from Parks and Rec?
I mean, that was Rob Lowe's comeback. Let's be honest.
Finally, he aged into the dorkiness.
And speaking of which, Rob Lowe, young and good looking here, and he's still fucking good looking. Worth calling out. This poster is one of the classic Hollywood posters of the 80s and 90s. The format being a woman who's cut off at the waist with her legs spread and a face in between them. And we don't know whose legs these are, but Rob Lowe is holding on for dear life. And the tagline reads, just an innocent screwball comedy after all. What's a little perjury, blackmail, burglary, and murder amongst friends?
Sold. In the 80s, I mean, even now it's cute, but in the 80s, that was hot shit.
Mm-hmm.
That would get you into a movie theater. Got 2 more quotes, Alex. From Film 4, no critic attributed. It says, Bogdanovich tries to emphasize the laughs rather than concentrating on characterization. I mean, it's a comedy. I'm glad that he focused on the laughter. That's how it's supposed to be. And then TV Guide says, the film isn't funny, but it's hard to figure out why.
It is?
It's funny. It's hard to figure out why you would think it's not funny. It's Rob Lowe falling, being smitten, tripping over his own words, taking money from his mom. It's Rob Lowe shenanigans. It's Peter Bogdanovich shenanigans via Rob Lowe. Mm-hmm. What's not to love? Illegally love, even.
Thank you.
Well, I guess it all started about 6.5 months ago, right here in my hometown, St. Augustine, Florida. Me, I was 500 miles away. Didn't even hear about any of it until just a couple of weeks ago.
Alex, how'd you watch this?
Tubi. The wonderful resource of Tubi comes through in the clutch once again. What about yourself?
Same. I was happy to see that it was there, and I was hoping we're reaching the end of the month, as you said, and I was terrified that it was gonna disappear. That it was gonna be one of those hidden gems from Tubi that they pull out of the vault for like 20 days and then they take it away. Because I don't know if it happens to you. I actually made a Tubi account so that it saves my progress on movies, and that means that they have my email address, and that means that they'll send me an email saying like, "Hey, you need to finish this movie before it leaves." And I get those emails often enough that I can tell that there's a rotation. You may not notice, but there's a lot of stuff rotating through Tubi, and so I was afraid that Legally Yours maybe might not be popular enough to keep on the roster 24/7. But thankfully, it's still there. Hopefully, it's still there by the time that you guys listen to this, and you've either already watched it or are going to race to watch it after you're done with this episode.
Yeah, interestingly enough, the version on Tubi is in a full screen format. It feels like it was just a rip from a DVD that existed back in the day, because I don't think that the artistic idea was to shoot this in 4:3 ratio. Who knows?
Really? Peter Bogdanovich would be against that?
Yeah, I mean, he's an artistic cat, so it could have been. We're going to have to kind of Frankenstein this together, as we don't have our usual resources in terms of plot. I do see here on Google, it tells us that college dropout Richard Dice, Rob Lowe, doesn't have much going for him, so getting selected for jury duty is a welcome respite. When he's selected for a murder trial, Richard discovers to his shock that the defendant is none other than Molly Gilbert, his elementary school crush. Richard is positive she didn't commit the crime, but hard evidence is lacking. To clear her name, he does some extracurricular investigating of his own with disastrous results. So, this movie begins with a very confusing sequence of events where we're introduced to a lot of characters. It would not surprise anyone that the same person who made What's Up, Doc made this movie as well. But what we find is that there's multiple parties involved interested in getting their hands on a cassette that Molly has. It's in a David Bowie case. And she went just to get her possessions from, a jilted lover. And while on the scene, someone is gunned down and she ends up getting pinned with it. Julio, is that about right? I found myself very confused in the opening stretch of this film.
Well, I mean, I think that it's meant to be confusing. I think the joke is that it's so confusing, right? Like, because as all this stuff is unfolding, we have nonstop narration from Rob Lowe, who's just talking about it the way that he talks through the entire movie, and voiceover and off voiceover, where he's just like, he never shuts up, and he's just constantly philosophizing and justifying his actions and giving inspirational speeches to himself and all that. And so it's like maybe, I don't know, like a 10-minute opening where a lot of shit happens and Rob Lowe is narrating it. And even though he's narrating it, it doesn't make sense. And because it's a comedy, and because I know that Peter Bogdanovich is a talented filmmaker, I know that he's trying to be funny. Now, I understand that some people may have gotten caught up on trying to make sense of it right away. But the thing is, if you trust him as a storyteller, eventually, by the time you get to the end, it all makes sense. In fact, it's not even that it makes sense. It's also that the details of the plot are kind of irrelevant, because the whole idea is, the heart of this is a love story between Rob Lowe and this girl that he used to love when he was a child. And so the rest, the murder, the crimes, all that stuff is just, decorations. I would suggest, Alex, that maybe we can start by trying to figure out the players here, because, like I said, I've seen this movie twice, and I want to say it was even more confusing the second time. Because the second time I was actually taking notes, and I was like, oh, that makes it worse. There is Rob Lowe's old flame. Well, not even old flame. What do you call the girl that you were crushing on when you were a child?
Oh, this is just great. It turns out if you hadn't seen me in the first grade, I wouldn't be running around here today like an idiot. I don't even remember this famous meeting.
Dude, I don't know. I don't even know if I remember like a crush before I was like 13. I mean, like the Pink Ranger or fucking Sunny on WWF, but like,
really, even not even like a girl at your school, like a girl that you thought was cute.
Well, I went to school with the same people from like kindergarten until I moved, which would have been my freshman year of high school. So I guess I don't remember like ages of crushes, but I remember like having, childhood crushes on certain girls. Kelsey Cesney, if she's listening out there, I remember having a schoolboy crush on Kelsey Cesney.
See, and I don't know if that's just like movies are to blame for this, or TV, or maybe that's just the way I'm wired. But I remember having a crush on a girl always. Not always the same girl, but it would be one of the things like, oh, this girl's really cute. And then I would just have a crush. I mean, I wouldn't ever do anything about it. So I was a pretty quiet kid, but I guess childhood crush is what you call them. Maybe.
Yeah.
Colleen Camp. Do you know her from anything?
No, but I do know another one of the females in our opening act here that I was immediately like, hey, it's the girl from Nightmare on Elm Street that looked a lot like Meryl Streep, and that's why she didn't really get work.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you look like somebody else that is not just more talented than you, but more talented than most people.
Yes.
Your work options are very limited.
And quickly, before anyone, Ben, perhaps on the other line of this, it was Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, that she was in, not the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Right. There is another Nightmare on Elm Street franchise connection coming up here shortly as well. But anyway,
I was very excited. Okay, Colleen Camp, I'm with you. I don't know from anything except that when I looked up her filmography, I'm like, I've seen a lot of these movies. So she has a career, and even more so when I was going through Letterboxd comments and reviews and whatever, people were like freaking out over her and acting like we act about Rob Lowe. We're like, yeah, it's Rob Lowe. Hey, it's Colleen Camp. I don't know. I can tell you this. From now on, I mean, she's made an impression. So if I see Colleen Camp on anything, I'm going to be like, that's the girl from Illegally Yours. She liked Bowie and she sold cable door to door. I get it now. So she is basically the muse.
In the remake, she would sell cable in the media section of Walmart or roam around Best Buy trying to sell you cable.
I still get door to door AT&T people trying to sell me on whatever they call it.
If I don't know who it is, I don't answer unless they have like, if I can see they have like a uniform on that calls out what it is. If I don't know who they are, I don't answer.
But you never know, Alex. Could open the door and find Colleen Camp, the girl you had a crush on 30 years ago.
Kelsey Cesney's selling cable door to door
now. Anyway, so this woman, I'm gaining confidence that we can put this together, Alex. This woman goes to her ex's house. She's had a bad breakup. This dude who has a blonde mullet has left her for some other woman that I don't know from anything.
Well, when I first met Molly, she was very tough, a little desensitized. Letting herself put me through travel agent school was a big step for her. Then I met Ruth.
Now, before she gets to that house, the house of her ex and his new lover are arguing with some shady guy that seems to be blackmailing them. We don't know what he's blackmailing them about, but he's recording himself. That guy has a hidden recorder.
He's got a bug on him. I thought he did. Means he was probably bugging us this morning. Maybe the whole time. Son of a...
That guy has driven to that house with two women in his car. The aforementioned not Meryl Streep, and then her Canadian friend.
I was away in Canada at school a year ago, and I was busted for pot, okay? I took care of it with Sharon's help.
Yeah, he was blackmailing her too, Tell him, Susie.
Yeah, that's the joke.
That's
She's
the
Canadian,
joke,
so she says yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been much funnier if she talked about like socialized medicine and shit.
Well, I thought that was so, it just takes you back. Like back when we felt so superior to Canada that we would just make fun of them. We're like, these idiots with the A. And that was like, no, everybody wants to flee to Canada.
And that like legit went through like 9/11, where America, like the joke was always how much better we are than Canada. And that it went past that too. 30 Rock had that great episode where Jack didn't want his baby to be born in Canada. Why not? Their milk comes in bags. All
right, so there's that Canadian girl, and then not Meryl Streep, in the car with the blackmailer. They drive to the house. The blackmailer leaves him behind, goes out, goes into the house, starts arguing with the ex with the mullet and his new woman. And then there's another group of people, these two goons, a really big guy that could have been, was your boy from Hudson Hawk and Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh, Andrew Brynarski.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's what
good
I thought.
one. Yeah.
Might be him. And then some other dude. Those guys are also following the blackmailer.
Yeah, well, look. There's no point beating around the bush no more.
What?
We's two knows what yous two are up to.
You do?
Yeah, the guy was blackmailing us, too.
They shoot the blackmailer, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that shoot him. They shoot him, but the people inside the house, the mullet guy and his new girlfriend, they also had a gun there, right?
This guy was and the not Andrew Brynarski had a sniper rifle, and they were all there to try to get him. And then somehow this whole confrontation ends up getting recorded, correct?
Yes, because the guy was recording, because I guess he's a blackmailer, so he records everything. So he gets shot. The ex with the mullet and his new girlfriend freak out. They think that they killed him, right? I think that's what happened. And then they realize that he has a tape. And then Colleen Camp shows up at the door because she's just coming to get her stuff. And so they panic. They hide the body of the dead blackmailer. And in the chaos, Colleen Camp, who doesn't know that there's a dead body there, she's packing her stuff and she grabs the tape that's from the blackmailer that they hid like on that Bowie case or whatever. So now she's leaving with incriminating evidence of something that she's not even aware of. But then on her way out, all these other parties like panic and there's like some kerfuffle and somebody almost runs her over. So she pulls a gun, or she picks up a gun from someone and shoots and ends up hitting a mailman who was not involved in this at all. And then Rob Lowe says, "That's how I met your mother."
He does. And then this is all outside of him. He doesn't know any of this happens. He just ends up on the jury for this. This is just basically for us, the audience, to learn, to set up what is to unfold. And then we go to the opening credits of this, which is accompanied by a song from Johnny Cash. I was like, I've never heard this song before. And so I looked it up and I was just tickled pink to learn that Johnny Cash recorded multiple original songs for this movie. Johnny Cash, this movie.
He gets a story consultant credit.
None of this makes sense. Dated February 25th of 2015, unreleased until now, Love is a Gambler. And this is from the JohnnyCashInfoCenter.com. In 1987 or early 1988, Johnny Cash entered a studio in Hollywood, California, and cut several songs for a Peter Bogdanovich comedy called Illegally Yours, which starred Rob Lowe and Colleen Camp. All songs, including tracks titled One Wish and Lady of Love, remain officially unreleased. It appears that Cash cut at least 3 different versions of a song called Love is a Gambler for the film. 2 versions appear in the film, one during the opening credits, the other during the closing. A third version recorded as a duet between Cash and his daughter, Roseanne Cash, who earned 3 much-deserved Grammys this year for her amazing Americana album, The River and the Thread, was actually the very first version recorded. Johnny and Roseanne cut the song hoping for a hit record rather than a movie theme. Even after being produced by the great muse Jack Clement in Nashville, the song remained unreleased. The rare duet has finally surfaced. Thanks to Earl Poole Ball and Peter Bogdanovich, you can now hear a very young Roseanne and her father rocking together on what should be considered a classic Cash tune. Very interesting story to come from this movie, I would say, if not the most interesting story to come from this movie.
I mean, it is a banger. Are you going to tell me that Love is a Gambler didn't get stuck in your head?
Oh, dude, I was singing it for an hour after the movie. I was walking around the house just kind of shaking my hips to it too.
I mean, P-Bog knew what he had because he pulls a PJ Hogan and he plays the whole song. It's just Rob Lowe finding out that he's being cheated on and then catching not a cab, he gets a tow truck driver to first he crashes his car, then he gets a tow truck driver to give him a lift all the way to his hometown, back to his mom. And through all this, Johnny Cash is
and it's Christmas time.
Apparently, yes. When you said duet, I legit thought you were going to say there was an unreleased duet with Rob Lowe and Cash singing this
Johnny
song.
Cash and Rob Lowe, yeah. Okay.
Yep. Kind of like at the end of What's Up Doc, where it's Ryan O'Neal and Barbra Streisand singing that song. Same thing.
Yeah.
Could have happened.
Love is a gambler with your heart. Love is a rambler from the start. And the hottest fire you'll know is in the flame of a lover's glow.
But anyway, we finally get to see Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe with glasses, all the hair all messed up. And
he's a hopeless romantic, which I can sympathize with. And he's just exited one relationship and he's back home. He gets called to jury duty thinking he can easily get out of it, as most people do. And he gets there and he does not get out of it. And it's a murder trial, but the person on trial, as we discussed, is his childhood crush from when he was 6 and she was 11. He, there wasn't Facebook then, so he did a pretty good job of being able to, recognize her immediately, I thought.
That's true.
I guess that's it. The heart remembers things like that.
To be fair, Rob Lowe hasn't changed a bit since this movie came out, at least. So if Rob Lowe has always looked the same, maybe everybody in that town, like, they don't change, they don't age, so you can always recognize him easily. It's not a murder case yet, Alex. I don't think she's on trial for shooting the mailman who didn't die. He just got a bullet in the ass. Yeah,
you're right. It becomes a murder trial, though, right?
Right by the end, but at this point, and through most of the movie, nobody knows that the blackmailer got killed. The blackmailer got killed and then they hid the body. And that's the whole point, that he needs to find the body to prove that there was a murder and to prove that, she's innocent, I guess, somehow.
Yeah, you're right. Because they say that the bad guy in this, what's his name? Donald Cleary says, there wouldn't have been an issue if that mailman hadn't spoken up. So right. I guess it's still a crime and it's still worthy of a trial. But it seems like you're spending so many resources on something that was kind of an accident, but they're really leaning on her, like throwing the whole book at her over this. So Richard recognizes her, immediately falls back in love with her once on this trial, and all the surrounding players that we already discussed are, keeping a keen eye on the happenings. Richard, just from kind of watching from afar, realizes these people are after her and she's in trouble. So he tries to track her down to tell her this. This, for some reason, includes a sequence where he breaks and enters into a home and then disguises himself as a woman. Presumably, theaters around the world roared in laughter and applause.
Dude, it's not just any home. This is the house of the judge.
Oh, yeah.
Only in the 80s. Rob Lowe in drag. I mean, I don't know if it happens in any other movies or TV shows, but it happens. He's wearing heels. He goes all out, and then he does a high-pitched voice because he's trying to cover himself so that Colleen Camp, who's shown up to sell cable, doesn't recognize him. And it's delightful. And look, this would be just like your run-of-the-mill 80s comedy. But knowing that Peter Bogdanovich was behind the camera, taking this seriously, directing it, and making a movie. It's like this Peter Bogdanovich does the 80s. Yeah. I was watching, I was like, okay, is this him lowering himself to like everybody else's level? Or is it him trying to lift the genre up? And maybe it's a little bit of both, maybe it's somewhere in between, but it definitely makes it a richer experience, especially when you are in the sort of journey that we are when we started watching his movies from the beginning. Mm-hmm. So having seen Last Picture Show, Targets, to see him direct a movie now where Rob Lowe wraps himself in a pink robe and pretends to be a woman that reads cards so he can try to warn his childhood crush that some bad people are after her. I mean, it's very amusing and even rewarding, because I think it kind of shows that P-Bog was finally loosening up. He was learning to have fun.
So we already mentioned here that Rob Lowe has returned back home to St. Augustine, Florida, and one of the characters we are introduced to as he returns back home is his little brother, Andrew Dice. No, not Andrew Dice Clay, but Andrew Dice, played by Ira Hayden.
Forget about it. You got to be stopped. This woman will destroy you.
Andrew, you don't know what you're talking about. Will you find the yearbook, please?
Who most famously is one of the performers in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors, which is Contrarians Corner or Real Talk legitimately beheld as one of the greatest slasher films of all time, and by most people, the best Nightmare on Elm Street film. Of course, also starring the likes of Lawrence Fishburne and Patricia Arquette. Robert Englund's there just saying what's up. It's a hell of a time, but this would have been the year after. So he was riding high, man. You get to work with fucking Englund and then Bogdanovich, just back to back like that. But
Lowe?
he is the voice of reason in this, because what I want to get to here is that, Rob Lowe, Richard is just explaining how this is all going to work out and somehow end up with him, marrying this girl that he knew when he was 6 years old. And his little brother here is just basically telling him he's fucking delusional, and he represents the voice of the audience. Like, what the fuck are you thinking, dude? This isn't going to work the way you think it is. And all the while, Rob Lowe's like, I've seen movies before. You hold your horses, young man.
It's the two sides of Bogdanovich. The romantic, idealistic side of Bogdanovich is represented by Rob Lowe, and the jaded, cynical, realistic side of Bogdanovich that's been trampled on by the Hollywood machine, that's the little brother. It makes sense. You see them argue so much. This kid, I knew he looked familiar. It wasn't until the movie was over and looked up the credits that I realized who he was. And it's like, yeah, he's the wizard from Dream Warriors. His death scene is a bummer.
And this, he's still a little nerdy. Works at the local record store, which I thought was pretty cool.
The Empire Records of the town.
Well, that one was it was too small. It wasn't 2 stories. It wasn't like an empty warehouse. It didn't have a big neon sign on the top of it. So, well, what are you going to do? It's
Florida, after all. You can't have good things. Since we're with his family, I have to say MVP for me, steals every scene she's in. Jessica James, Richard's mom. Like, you can tell when there's a veteran in the cast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, everybody else here, I'm not saying that they're bad, because they're not, but there is a noticeable difference when it comes to experience, to poise between Jessica James and everybody else. Rob Lowe, kid from Dream Warriors, even older actors. I mean, because there's the guy that she's dating now, who wants him to call him Uncle Freddie, and then there's the tow trucker that becomes, he brings Rob Lowe into the house at the beginning of the movie, and then he just sticks around for the rest of the story. These are older people, but none of them seem to have as much confidence and pitch perfect comic timing as Jessica James. And I easily am already putting her on my Embry ballot for supporting character. She's really funny, and she's playing kind of like the typical mom role in a way, but the way that she delivers lines, the way that she's constantly calling out Rob Lowe for bullshit that he's doing, but then melting every time that he, says, well, I love you, or, asks for something. And I found it really endearing.
Guess what? Made the jury.
I thought you were getting out of it, sweetie. Where's your shoe?
I was. I am. But now I'm considering law school.
Richard, we've done a lot of stupid things over the year, but we've never been boring people. Where's your other shoe?
Mom,
I might have Kenneth Mars higher at the list.
Vindication for Kenneth Mars.
Yes. Did I call out in What's Up, Doc, that he was Otto on Malcolm in the Middle?
I don't think so, no.
Yeah, he played Otto. He was a reoccurring character on that show. He was Francis's boss at the resort that Francis worked at, and he was very funny in that. But here nor there. Well, it is kind of here because he's in the next sequence of events that happens. Julio, explain to me what happens here. You've watched this movie twice. I was taking notes feverishly. I got the high points of what happens here, but we get into this kind of marathon. The baton is handed off, so to speak, in terms of this Bowie tape, where Kim Myers and her friend are there. They have it, and then Rob Lowe has it, but they're all on property somewhere where they shouldn't be. So bottom line this for me. What's going on here?
They're in a castle, right? You're talking about the castle.
Yes.
This movie has two big sequences in the castle. One's at night, one later in the movie. It's a party. So there's this rich person that they've been talking about through the entire movie. And that rich person turns out to be the father of Kim Myers, not Meryl Streep.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big reveal. Rob Lowe has become entangled with these two girls because they gave him a ride when he was running around the courthouse. And so now they're involved in, he doesn't know what they've done, but he thinks that they're up to something. So he follows them into the castle. Then they run into each other. They hand him the tape. The two girls tell him he needs to escape. And they tell him that he needs to go out a window and then crawl out the ledge. But then he goes out the window and there's no ledge. And Rob Lowe has the amazing line, "There's no ledge." And then he falls into the moat. This castle has a moat.
And then there's a fucking crocodile or an alligator that comes after him at this point.
And it's Florida, so it should be an alligator, right?
Yeah, good call.
Yeah. But anyway, Kenneth Mars, he's the dad. He's a rich person that everybody's been talking about. And he has some sort of party happening later in the weekend. And he shows up. And if you are a patron, you listen to our What's Up Doc episode, you might remember that I was not a fan of Kenneth Mars. I don't think you were either, right, Alex? You also found him kind of too out there in that movie. Yeah. Here, he is modulated. He got on the right tone.
How many times has Daddy Healthy Keeler told you not to play near those high open windows?
Sorry, Daddy.
Bonflaggers! Yes, sir. Secure those windows! Yes, sir.
He's still kind of playing a big character, but he's not putting on an outrageous accent, and he's not just flopping his hair and waving his hands, but he's still funny. And he's there for a couple scenes. He did it. Congratulations, Kenneth Mars. You've vindicated yourself. You've redeemed redemption for Kenneth Mars here in the Contrarians. I like the castle. I'll tell you that. I think that we don't see enough castles in comedies these days. They're kind of falling out of vogue. But here it works. Richard falls into the moat, leaves his wallet behind like a dummy, and then one of the bad guys finds it. And so now they know where he lives, right?
Yeah, the 4 people involved with this that want the tape, including, the overall bad guy, Cleary, him and Ruth, the woman that he's with, and then the 2 like bounty hunters or whatever you want to call them. They find the ID, so they all know who he is now.
It's Rob Lowe. He will be in Parks and Rec. He will be in The West Wing.
Creating a interesting dynamic the next day. Andrew Dice, his brother, while Rob Lowe's in the shower, he says, "Hey, I'm going to borrow your Bowie tape and you can borrow my Springsteen tape," which, those are both all-timer artists. So
fair
that's
trade,
a pretty
is
fair,
that what you're saying?
Yeah, fair trade. Yeah. And then back at court, I don't know if this character, the lawyer, the defense attorney, had spoken, but he's very much Foghorn Leghorn. Like, if you were there, and it's more of like a bayou type accent that he's implementing, but they are in Florida. So that's, there's parts of Florida you could constitute as the deep South, I suppose.
So this is Colleen Camp. Rob Lowe might have seen a lot of movies. He's getting inspiration for his adventures from them, but I don't think Colleen Camp has seen many, or at least she hasn't seen many court dramas, because she is constantly out of order here. And I couldn't believe that they had to constantly tell her, "Hey, shut up. You're hurting your case." They're calling her hysterical, and then she gets up and screams, "I'm not hysterical." It's not good. It's not a good look. But it's all worth it because you keep cutting to Rob Lowe sitting there with the jurors, and he is so in love. He's just like this big, stupid smile, and his eyes are kind of like fluttery, and she's just acting like a maniac in the courtroom, but he's very in love.
Why you lying son of a...
Order! Young lady, one more such outburst, and I'll find you in contempt of court.
Okay, you're right, Judge. I apologize.
So, at this point, Alex, both you, 90% of the audience, nobody can blame us for not following the story. But you can't follow the emotional journey. So, how invested are you halfway through the movie in this relationship?
I mean, at this point in the movie, I'm interested to see if this psychotic plan that Richard has is actually going to pay off or not. But, I can't say that this has my investment the way that, we recently saw Uncut Gems in IMAX, and that movie always hooks my attention. But it gets to a certain point in this where I'm like, is this plan actually going to work for Rob Lowe? I want to know how it's all resolved with everyone trying to get to the tape, and if like the guilty parties are actually going to be held accountable. So, there's different things to sink your teeth into.
Yep. I found myself not that invested in the love story. Like, I could tell that was like the main thing. What I'm supposed to be invested in is the love story, which makes sense. That's like something that plays for all audiences. But what I was really going for, was really rooting for, was Rob Lowe's self-realization as a person. I just wanted him to come out of this like a stronger person that has his shit together. I wanted him to be respected by his mother and looked up to by his brother, right? When he first arrives home at the beginning of the movie, nobody takes him seriously. Like, everybody knows he's a fuck up, and they're like, yeah, of course he was gonna crawl back and ask for money and wreck his car and all that. And so I was like, I don't care if they find the dead body. I don't care if he ends up hooking up with this girl or not. What I want is for him to be the hero at the end. And I think the movie eventually gets us there, even though it's more of a love story. I think that by the time you get to the end of the movie, you can tell that his family might be at the very least not embarrassed of him. So I'll take that as a win. But that was really my main thing. I was like, just do your mom proud.
So with this courtroom setting and a lot of what's going on around this and the moments of explanation of what's going on to other characters and, exposition for the audience, I did take note of you don't have to have Tarantino-like scripts per se with razor sharp dialogue. If a lot of people are talking fast, you can just trick people into thinking your movie's intelligent. And that's not a knock. That's a life hack, as the kids say. So, because that's pretty much the entirety of this movie. The middle portion of this. Take out the first 30 and last 30. It's just a lot of characters talking very quickly to one another, and I could see people complaining they get lost in that. But I think as a viewer, that keeps you on your toes.
Well, especially because it's usually 2, 3, or even more conversations at once, right? Like Rob Lowe is talking about something with his mom, but then his brother is cutting in about something else. And then the tow truck driver is talking about something else. And then Uncle Freddy comes in and he's talking about something. So they're like juggling all these punchlines and they land at different times. It's actually pretty impressive. And you have to have actors that can handle the chaos. The Tarantino, I mean, it's a good call in the sense that it's just so very different, even though it's something that's praised a lot. The way that he handles conversations, though, they're like ping pong matches. It's like back and forth. And Bogdanovich in this movie, it's more like dodgeball with multiple balls.
So what happens here is that Donald, the guilty party with Ruth, his new flame, they realize that this tape is the evidence they need. So he needs to try to win back his former lover in the form of Molly, Colleen Camp. And so he puts on the charm. And, of course, this results in Rob Lowe overhearing the situation and getting a momentary heartbreak from it. But the idea is that they're going to have a rendezvous, and while Donald's at the house of Molly, he's going to find that tape, take it, and destroy it, be on his way. Before that can happen, though, Richard gets in her ear, explains the situation, explains what's going on, and along the way, I think he realizes he has a Springsteen tape, which he was probably like, well, I'll listen to Hungry Heart and then I'll worry about the situation. And because it's a live album that he has, because I have that album on vinyl. I recognize that cover. But anyway, everyone convenes here because everyone's after that tape, and it results in a bit of a shootout here. And to me, one of the funnier lines in the movie, because it seems as though everywhere Richard goes that not Meryl Streep and her friend are right there to save him or get him out of harm's way and pull up. And
they have a crush on him. That is,
well, who doesn't?
Yes, but I thought that it was hilarious. It was amazing when at some point the Canadian girl says, "You can have him because he's too cute. He's scary."
But they pull up and he says, "You guys are everywhere," or something to that effect. And not Meryl Streep goes, "Ubiquitous." And he goes, "You what?" That, of course, is something that would make me laugh.
So is this around the time that he tricks his brother into joining the team? He tells him, "Hey, you want to get laid?"
Yes. Because before this, he has to go with the real tape before they can pull this off. So he goes to the record store, in which he inadvertently gets his brother fired because everyone's chasing him there looking for it. So yeah, his brother there now playing the role of Stifler's younger brother or whatever, the younger horny brother from the 80s comedy that just wants to hang around the girls and has no game. So we get some laughs from that.
So, what's Pitt Meadows?
Hometown, eh?
Oh, really? Where's that?
BC.
Huh? Before Christ.
British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, a Canuck, huh?
We get it all laid out, though, from not Meryl Streep. What is her? Susie's in this movie, and I can't remember what her friend's name is. It's Sharon, maybe? And they just explain the whole thing, that this guy, Arnie, was trying to blackmail too many people and ended up getting himself killed for it. And as we learn at the end of the movie, this guy was not a good guy to begin with. But at this point, everything in this makes sense. And now we know why that tape is so important to so many people.
The thing that we don't know is what happened to the body of Arnie, the blackmailer.
So after this whole kerfuffle at Molly's house the next day, they're deliberating the verdict, and Rob Lowe and one other woman are holding out for not guilty. And in real time, Rob Lowe puts it together because he's mentioned throughout this, he's heard talk of a shipment going out on Friday at 5 p.m. And it was a statue. And then he realizes that the body is in the statue and it's being sent off to Cairo, so the evidence will be gone forever. So Julio, explain like what his logic is to try to take care of this.
It's pretty awesome because he knows that he's against the clock here, right? Like that shipment is going to take place pretty soon. So he can't be stuck at this jury room deliberating. So he changes his mind, that he tells everybody that he thinks that Colleen Camp is guilty so he can get out of there. And then that leaves the one lady that was saying not guilty with him by herself. And so then she ends up saying guilty as well. So he gets Colleen Camp sentenced and, just so that he can expedite things so he can go out and find the dead body and then prove that there was something else going on when she shot that postman. The funny thing, well, there's two really funny things. One is that before he changes his mind, when he's just holding the jury hostage because he won't change his mind, there's one of the jurors that says,
"Where I come from, we have an expression. When 100 people tell you you're dead, lie down."
Which I thought was awesome. And then the other thing is after they say guilty and they sentence Colleen Camp, and then they say that she can't make bail because she's broke from all the expenses of the trial. Suddenly, Rob Lowe feels guilty about what he just did. And so instead of letting her be taken away and then he goes and clears her name, he springs into action and grabs her and then runs away with her, escapes the courtroom, becomes a fugitive. He blew his own plan, Alex.
I mean, this is why it's a screwball comedy. And from this point forward, it is just nothing but screwball comedy. Because he takes her and they go back to his house where he'd hidden the tape, and the tape was gone because his mom moved all his shit out. So they have to go back to their elementary school to find it. And they end up like stealing it from a little kid because they can't win it. This is where the movie takes off in many respects.
It's the third act of What's Up, Doc?
It is.
The mom gets to be a badass, by the way. She stares down the barrel of a gun and wins.
In my house, I sit when I'm good and ready.
What about me, Ruth? Get back, both of you. Do something, Richard. Go for the eyes, Ma.
Yeah, it is pretty badass because the Ruth character, who had kind of been built up to be Darth Sidious at this point, just gets kind of backed down by Mrs. Dice. She's like, what the fuck are you going to do? You're not going to, what are you going to do? Shoot me? And it doesn't happen. So then they make off to the school. They eventually get the tape that they're looking for. The cops are after them along the way, and they take off back to the castle where there's a party of some sort going on. It's a send-off of this. Is the party celebrating the send-off of the statue?
I think the statue's being shipped as the party's happening, but I think the party's something else.
Okay. Well, they eventually wind up finding the statue being loaded on to the freighter that's going to take it. And also all the boxes are labeled HBK shipping. I don't know why. I couldn't put together who the initials that would be. But of course, as a wrestling fan, I just think Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. I'm like, Shawn had his own shipping company back in the day. And through an extreme series of happenstance and shenanigans, as the statue's being lifted by a cable, by a big crane, they're able to knock it down. It explodes and the body is revealed. And then there's a big happy ending where they're like fucking celebrities now, because why not?
Did I see that right? I've seen this movie twice, and both times I did a double take. I was like, is this really happening? Are they erecting like some sort of monument.
They turned his house. They turned the house of Richard Dice into a historical landmark. You know, those are all around Texas. You know, you think of like the Alamo has one of those big plaques out front of it. And yeah, so now his home there in Florida is a historical landmark.
I mean, this is Peter Bogdanovich having a blast. Like, is this what you want me to do? Fine. I'll do it. Johnny Cash takes us out, as you referenced earlier. They use the same song as bookend, but I guess this is a different version. I didn't notice it was a different version, but I guess he has the intro and the outro for the movie.
Yeah, that's what the entry on the Johnny Cash Information Center or whatever I was citing earlier, that's what they said was there were two different versions. So yeah, but it takes us out and we're out in a pretty clean 140.
A very unexpected turn of events in the career of Peter Bogdanovich.
Yeah, it was something that happened, and we both lived through it.
All right, let's go to real talk. Let's see if we can sort ourselves out.
Take us out, Johnny.
Well, you can feel just like a child when you fall in love. You hide and seek for dreams that might come true.